Today we are making vegan mozzarella sticks that have the perfect crunch and flavor, and they even stretch. Welcome back. Before we get started, we are going to need a batch of my vegan mozzarella, which we made in the last video. So if you missed that, I will put a link in the description below where you can find that video. And I'll also put a link to the recipe in the description so you can follow along. If you don't want to make your own mozzarella, you can use a store-bought mozzarella like Miyoko's. In my test, the Miyoko's did not stretch quite as well as the homemade mozzarella. When I made this vegan mozzarella, I wrapped it up in plastic wrap to shape it into a rectangular shape. So this is going to make it possible to slice it into nice even sticks. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to cut this mozzarella into about 8 pieces. So I'm just going to set this aside, and now I'm going to make a batter. I'm starting with a 1/4 cup of flour, and I'm going to add 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder, and 1/8 teaspoon of white pepper to a bowl. And I'm just going to give it a little mix. Now I'm going to add 3/8 of a cup of water, which is 6 tablespoons, and mix it up until I have a nice smooth batter. Now in a separate bowl, I am going to make my seasoned breadcrumbs. So I'm just adding 3/4 of a cup of panko breadcrumbs, 1 teaspoon of dried basil, a teaspoon of dried oregano, and 1/2 teaspoon of dried thyme. And I'm gonna mix that up so it's nice and even. And lastly, I'm just gonna put some flour on a small plate here. I'm not gonna put too much on the plate, just enough to coat the slices of mozzarella, and I'll add more if I need it. Now over on my stove, I'm going to preheat my oil. I'm adding about 1 inch of oil to a large saute pan, and I'm going to heat it up on medium heat. It's really important for this recipe that you don't overheat the oil, because you won't get the same stretch from your mozzarella if you do, and you might burn the breadcrumbs as well. So back to my little mozzarella assembly line here. I'm going to take a slice of the mozzarella and roll it around in the flour. This is going to make it easier for the batter to stick. Now I'm going to drudge it through the batter and make sure it gets a nice even coat. The batter is what's giving the mozzarella sticks their crunch and some of the flavor, and it's also the barrier that's going to keep the mozzarella from leaking out when it's frying. It's also giving the breadcrumbs something to stick to, so make sure you coat it well. And finally, we are going to coat the mozzarella stick in the seasoned breadcrumbs. If you have any spots that are hard to get fully coated, sometimes a spoon can help. If you just spoon the breadcrumbs over the bare spot and then press down with the back of the spoon, it'll usually stick. Now I'm just gonna set this aside on a plate and coat the rest of the mozzarella sticks. My mozzarella sticks are now ready to fry. You can also bake these if you prefer. You just won't get the same golden color and crunch as you do when they're fried. If you want to bake them, you can put them in an oven at 400 degrees for 15 minutes and turn them halfway. I am going to carefully add my mozzarella sticks to my hot oil. They'll take about 2 to 3 minutes to turn golden brown, and then I will turn them to the other side. Then I'm gonna pull them out with a metal spatula and let them drain on some paper towels for a few minutes. And they're done. These go really well with my spicy marinara dipping sauce, which the recipe is on my website, and I will leave a link for that in the description below if you want that recipe. Let's stretch test them. It has a really nice crunch to it, and the cheese has a very mozzarella-y flavor. It doesn't have the exact mouthfeel of mozzarella. It is lighter, and when it stretches, it's not as strong. It breaks more easily. But compared to all the vegan mozzarellas that I've tried, I mean, this is probably the closest. So as long as you have realistic expectations, go ahead and fill the nostalgic void in your soul for mozzarella sticks. This should do it. That's all for this one, but I am not done with this mozzarella, because in the next one I am going to make vegan baked ziti. So if you want that recipe, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.